Since the Ford government took power in June 2018, Ontario's education system has been under attack. The Ford Conservatives have been pushing false narratives, lying to the public, and demonizing teachers from the get-go. I'm here to clear a few things up and enlighten you on why education workers are striking today.
We're putting $1.6 billion more in education, protecting every teacher's job. I can't wait till September, so all the rhetoric and nonsense that we've heard from opposition, all the rhetoric we've heard from the teachers' unions that don't have the teachers' best interests. You know, Mr. Speaker, in September, we're going to say, we told you so. There wasn't any cuts. We're putting more money in education, more money into the classroom. That's what it's about.
Let's see if that statement was true, shall we? In March 2019, Education Minister, along with her homeschooled parliamentary assistant, Sam Oosterhoff, announced that they were increasing class sizes, forcing online learning, and repealing the sexual health curriculum. This was met with a ton of backlash from Ontarians and experts, particularly the mandatory e-learning part. This is because endless studies show that smaller class sizes increase the quality of education students receive and provides a better work environment for teachers. In addition, mandatory e-learning is problematic because not every student in Ontario has access to reliable internet, particularly those in rural Ontario. Also, students are unique and have individual needs that cannot always be addressed through technology and online measures. When confronted with this, Lisa Thompson said that increased class sizes would make students, quote, more resilient. I wonder why Lisa was demoted as education minister and replaced with the king of spin and word salads, Stephen Lecce, who himself attended private school his whole life. During the election, Doug Ford promised that not one teacher would lose their job.
And under our government, I'm going to reinforce this, not one single person will lose their job. What I say I'm going to do, we're going to do.
We now know that that was completely false, as almost 2,700 teachers received redundancy letters before this school year began, in addition to the hundreds of teachers who were laid off.
We are adding money every step of the way. In education, $700 million. More money increased and spent this year on education.
That's a tiny increase, though. You know that. You know that school boards are saying, the Peel region is saying they're having to lose 369 teachers. Well, 121 yes. for North District School Board. The Toronto District School Board says it needs to fire 216 elementary teachers and 800 high school teachers. Your party campaigned on a promise that no one would lose their job.
Weird how increasing class sizes and forcing e-learning removes the need for teachers. In fact, the Ford government will actually eliminate 10,000 teaching positions over 5 years. Funny how Lisa Thompson once accused the Liberal government of performing, quote, social experiments on our children.
The Liberals used our classrooms to conduct social experiments on our children.
When it appears the Conservative government is the one doing that with these destructive policy changes. It's not just teachers that students are losing, but they're also losing thousands of courses and even the ability to take courses they need to graduate and get into college or university. The Ford government is creating more barriers for these students rather than helping them, which is what their government is supposed to do. While all of this chaos is happening, American private education lobbying groups have set up shop in Ontario. I mean, why wouldn't they? Private education companies stand to make a lot of money right now with all of this manufactured chaos created by the Ford government. Want your children to graduate on time? You're going to have to enroll them in private education to get that. This actually ties into a 6-page document that recently leaked, showing that the Ford Conservatives planned on slashing even more education funding while creating full online Ontario secondary school diplomas as a way to, quote, generate revenue from students. Only a Conservative government could look at our public education system and think, how can I make money off of these kids? In the summer of 2019, with a new talking head in place as education minister, the Ford government decided they would temporarily only increase class sizes from 22 to 25 instead of 28. But they would have you believe they are decreasing it down from 28.
We've lowered the classroom average from 28 to 25.
They basically started a fire in 2 rooms, extinguished it in 1, and said, look at all the good we're doing. In addition, they will require 2 online classes instead of 4. But once again, the Ford government would have you believe they are lowering it down.
We've reduced the online learning from 4 to 2, but Mr. Speaker...
2 is still an increase from 0, Stephen. Perhaps it's you all that need to take that mandatory math test you're forcing new teachers to do.
Good. You know, it's simple. Anyone can figure 2 + 2 out. Maybe the opposition can't figure out what 2 + 2 is.
Come to order.
We're creating more spots for education, putting money back into the classroom.
In addition to these problematic policy changes, the Ford Conservatives have been ruthless with their cuts to education.
You know, the member in the opposition, they keep saying cuts. What cuts? They can't name any because there hasn't been any.
Including, but not limited to, cutting the Parents Reaching Out program by 50%, cutting $100 million from school repairs and maintenance, $25 million from the EPO fund, which provides grants for after-school programs and jobs for youth and low-income students, $10 million from the Ontario Arts Council, which funds things such as the Indigenous Culture Fund. The Ford Conservatives love preaching that they are spending a record amount of money on education, even though it's just slightly up from last year. But the fact of the matter is, per student spending is down $54. So while the total number is slightly higher than it was before, that means nothing in the end since our students are receiving less. Stephen Lecce loves to brag about how he reached a deal with CUPE, something that happened right before the federal election. I believe this happened out of necessity to avoid a strike, which would look terrible on the Conservatives right before an election. After all, Doug Ford had been in hiding for 5 months at that point, in the hopes that Ontario would forget about all of the damage his government has done to help elect Andrew Scheer. Although the deal with CUPE was reached, the union is now claiming that the Ford government is withholding $78 million of funding that the Ford government already cut and promised to reinstate through negotiations. This money would rehire 1,300 staff across the province for things like special education. In addition, the Ford government has put a freeze on public sector employee wage increases at 1%, well below the rate of inflation, something the Ford government cited as their reasoning for quietly giving themselves a 20% rental allowance increase. So next time someone starts bashing those greedy, money-hungry teachers, many of whom have already lost more money than they would have gotten with a 2% increase, please inform that individual about the real reasons why teachers are striking. They are fighting for our students. They are fighting for our world-class education system. They are fighting for our special needs students. This government is not bargaining in good faith, and they are not telling you the truth. In fact, Education Minister Stephen Lecce has not been to the negotiating table even once. He's been too busy peddling misinformation to the media and taking a nauseating amount of selfies.
Framing that question to suggest that our focus is on numbers.
But that's what you're focusing on. You've been talking about money. That's all you ever talk about. In every interview I've heard, you talk about this $1.5 billion.
That $1.5 billion is the red line for them. And I think if parents knew those facts, knowing that they're making on average $92,000, they'd want me to fight to put more money in the front of class.
You do not mention that they talk about the classroom sizes. You do not mention the e-learning.
Yes, the rationale for me talking about that $1.5 billion request or insistence by the union is because in my estimation, that is the fundamental wedge at the table.
And they say that is not the only wedge at the table, that they're concerned about the kids.
To assert it isn't about compensation is preposterous. It is